intelligencesquared.com.
Let's move on to our third topic, and it has been touched on inevitably in that discussion there we just had about Israel. The role of the Islamists, particularly focusing obviously on the Muslim Brotherhood. Questions before us: what degree of tolerance is the army likely to show towards the Muslim Brotherhood, the army council that now rules the country? Is the Brotherhood likely to seek alliance with secular non-Islamist parties? Are they likely, or do they want to, does the Brotherhood want to hijack, if you like, the popular revolt and turn it into their own? And Roger Cohen has mentioned the precedent of Tehran in 1979. And will the rights of women and other minorities be endangered if the Muslim Brotherhood were to take, if not overall control, a decisive role? To kick us off is Tariq Ramadan. There'll be a response later from Denise Kanjosi, but Tariq Ramadan.
Yes, thank you. So let me, once again, it's very difficult just to tackle the issue in 6-7 minutes, but let us try to say something useful for the sake of the discussion. First, once again, we have to repeat what was said here. This is not an Islamist revolution. And we cannot just compare what was happening in Tunisia or what is happening in Egypt with what was happening in Iran. In Iran, the leadership, and it was an Islamist, it was not hijacked by Islamists. It was, from the day one, it was an Islamist revolution. Now, what is clear from what we got from the Muslim Brotherhood and even from the Islamist party in Nahda in Tunisia is what they were caught by surprise. They themselves tried to find a place in the whole process, and they were trying. We got just after 4 days the Muslim Brotherhood saying, oh, our man is Baradai, because they wanted to be within. So we can think it's a strategy. What is quite clear from the very beginning is that they were not leading the movement. It was not an Islamist movement, and it was them. It was not them to. They were not hijacking anything from the very beginning, and I don't think that we can say it's only strategy. The second thing, which was quite important in all the slogans that we had, it was for the sake of Egypt, freedom, autonomy, and against the dictator. It was not against the West, it was not for Islam, and even what you said is quite important. The Islamist or any Islamic slogan was not there. So as much as we haven't heard anything against the West, we haven't heard anything about, an Islamic state or an Islamic project. And this is something which is important. Now, what is important, because this is what we got from the dictators for years. What Mubarak tried to do the first 2 days is to arrest 500 Muslim brothers, to say, this is them. And this is exactly what Ben Ali did at the beginning. He said, the Islamists are behind it, in order, once again, to sell us the story. It's either us, the dictator, or the radical Islamist. And we justified for years our support in the West to dictators by saying, better them than the Islamists. So it was again the same rhetoric, and it didn't work, because straight after they were arrested, it was quite clear that they were not leading the movement. What is clear, and this was true in Tunisia and was true in Egypt, that from within the country, they have something which is a historical legitimacy as an opposition force. That is clear, and we cannot deny this, that for 60 years they were against, Mubarak. They have been arrested under Nasser, tortured, repressed, under Nasser, under Sadat, and this is clear. But this position, this symbolic position, was not there over the 18 days of the revolution. It was not there. But what was said, first it started with the Israeli government, it started in the West. This is what we got. This we have to be scared was by the Islamists. And the second thing which is important is they were part of the movement. Once again, this is clear. They were part of the movement, not leading the movement. Now, if we look at who were the people who are involved. And once again, I think that when we speak about Islamism and Islamists, we have to be cautious. Who are we talking about? What are we describing as Islamists? And very often in the rhetoric now, it's as if we are talking about radicals and the bin Laden thing. It's not to know what is happening, for example, in Tunisia. The first one to speak about democracy, for example, in the Islamist recent history is Ghannouchi. And Ghannouchi was here in London. He came back to Tunisia, and he was saying from the beginning, I'm not going to run for presidency, I'm not going to impose anything, we accept the rule of law. And by the way, what was said by the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood from the very beginning was, we are going to respect Egyptian agreement with Israel. This was said exactly the opposite of what you are saying. It was said 5 days after the beginning of the revolution, saying we are not going to change this. So this is something which is, once again, to use them as a threat against the revolution and not to take the revolution for what it is. Now, we have to take a position on this. We cannot just underestimate the potential threat, but we cannot overestimate it and just saying we have to take a choice between dictators and Islamists. To look at what was happening within the Islamist trend, even in Tunisia and in Egypt, is first to acknowledge the fact that over the last 30 years, they have changed a great deal, and it's not a monolithic movement. You have tensions between the first generation of people who started the movement and the second generation, and anyone who has studied the Muslim Brotherhood, even with young people who were trying to get a political party, al-Wasat, they had to leave the movement, and then you have people who are very close to it. They say, we have to look at what Erdogan is doing in Turkey, and others are very close to what is said in Saudi Arabia. And by the way, we don't have a problem with Saudi Arabia in the West. Not a problem at all. We can deal with them as long as they are protecting our interests. So we don't have a problem with some Islamists, as long as these Islamists are protecting our interests. And we have to be self-critical here in the way we deal with the whole issue. We can't just keep on this very simplistic, slogans, Islamists are going to be against the West. It's not true. And literalists, Muslims, are also Islamists in the way they deal with the governance. So just to go to here to a conclusion, we have to deal with the differences and to get a sense of what is happening in the Islamist trends. And once we understand what is, first, these revolutions are not Islamist revolutions. Second, they are part of the movement, and then we need to challenge the views of the Islamists. We can't accept the people to be tortured and repression because we don't agree with the views of these people. And the mainstream Islamist groups that we are talking about in Tunisia and in Egypt are legalist, non-violent, and they are part of the system. They were not recognized officially by the government, but in Egypt, they were clearly non-violent. And this is the situation. So for us now, and this is where I think it's quite important to be consistent with our view, we should stop demonizing the opposition forces and the Islamist voices in the West. If we want to be true to our principles, we can't demonize and accept, for example, what was said by Israel at the very beginning, the Netanyahu government, saying you should support Mubarak, because if not, we'll have the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Muslim Brotherhood is exactly the same as the Iranian regime. This is wrong. Factually, historically, scientifically, we can't accept this. It's just sending us a message that the only way to have stability in the region is to surround Israel with dictatorships. That cannot be the situation for the future. The last point for me is, once again, if we are serious with our own principles, we challenge the people. What is your view on Sharia? I have lots of questions about, some of the Islamists and the way they deal with Sharia and the way they understand Sharia. What do we mean when we speak about implementing Sharia, Islamic State, women, minorities? But we challenge them and we ask for a democratic process to let them be part of the democratic debates and not just to accept them to be oppressed. And the last point that I wanted to make here for us also in our understanding is it's a very critical decision that we have to take. Now, what happened during years in the Middle East is dictators repressing Islamists. And the only thing which is coming out of repression is radicalization. not at all, getting rid of the phenomenon. We are not going to get rid of anything which has to do with political Islam by repressing the people, by challenging them and abiding by our own principles.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.